area for discussion, the creation of inclusive workplaces, the policies and beyond that surround it. So you will agree that inclusive workplace goes beyond diversity. It champions equal opportunities for all, emphasizing diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. It's not just a noble concept or a checkbox for corporate compliance. It's the very lifeblood that pumps through the veins of trailblazing organizations. On our panel today, we've got Dr. Rohini Gupta Srivastava. May I request you to please come up? Dr. Rohini Srivastava, CTO Microsoft India, who helps her customers and partners in India and South Asia to accelerate their AI transformation journey through strategic envisioning, focusing on business value and ensuring trust with security and responsible AI. Ms. Anasuya Mohan Rao, Clinical Partnerships Leader at the Philips Innovation Lab India, a senior R&D leader. She enables customer-centric healthcare solutions to enhance patient outcomes and business value. To steer the discussion, we have Ms. Kasturi Ghosh, partner at Tri-Legal. Kasturi has been actively involved in several high-profile inbound and outbound acquisitions and joint ventures. She specializes in advising multinational clients on commercial, regulatory, and strategic matters. It's over to you, Kasturi.
Thank you and good morning. And give it up to all angry young women. I say, come on. I think we're following a very, very excellent speaker who's really set the stage for us. She's told us about how we need to drop those beauty standards. We need to really find our authentic self, and we need to bring the best version of ourselves to the workplace. So it is me plus we, right? This world doesn't change with just one person making a difference. Yes, they can start a movement, but I think the most important person in a movement is the second person, because they actually take on and they believe what the first person has said. And if I could be a little geek as well, I'll say with great power comes great responsibility. And that is the stage that I am sharing two extremely powerful women, Anu right next to me and Rohini right there. And when we were preparing for this panel, we were talking about what is policy, what is advocacy, what is programs. I'm a lawyer, so I speak the language of the law. So I'm like, okay, this is black and white. This is what we have to do. When clients ask me questions, it's all about, what is the right way. And when I speak to these two ladies, they don't come from the world of law, but they come from the world of programs and policies and advocacy. So, we'll try to get into this a little bit more, not just from the lens of the law, but also, what are the experiences that we've all had in this field? How has policy helped? How has policy not helped? How has advocacy helped? Because it's not just always about what you write down as a policy. So if I could start, same question to the both of you. There's a lot of talk about DEI, right? Organizations today are actively building it into the culture, building it into the conversations that we are hearing. Anu, if I can come to you, you're at Philips, you're a cutting edge in innovations company. What is DIE with you guys?
Thank you, Kasturi. And first up, good morning, and it's fantastic to be here. I'm grateful for this opportunity. I just wanted to step back, Kasturi, when we think of DIW and what it means for us at Philips. I think it stems from the purpose that we have as an organization. For us, the purpose at Philips is that it's all about improving people's health and well-being through meaningful innovation. And there is an underlying culture that is part of the fabric, and that is about delivering impact with care for people, our patients, and the planet. So for us, It's DEI for sure. It's also about DIW, which is about well-being. And our DIW strategy is based on 4 pillars, 4 important pillars. The first one is about attracting and retaining diverse talent. The second one is about developing them. The third is about improving health and well-being. And last but not the least, the important aspect, how do we embed it into our organization? And all of these are actually made possible through certain guiding principles. The first one is about listen before you act. The second part is about focus on the impact and not just the activities. The third is how do we actually walk the talk? And third, and the last but not the least, is about embracing equity. So it's really important to dwell and bring out proof points that talk about the commitment. And all of this is possible through our diversity council and also employee resource groups. We can get into that a bit later.
Yeah.
Now, just moving very quickly into the what is happening at an India standpoint, it's definitely not a one size fits all solution. So what we are thinking of is to make it multi-dimensional, have it more balanced, where it is about gender diversity, generational inclusion, inclusion of people with disabilities, inclusion of LGBT QIA plus, and also inclusion beyond gender. And I think we can get into more aspects on the gender and other related details, but this is what I would like to start with.
Absolutely. So you've kind of played out the various interest groups, if I were to put it that way, right? So Rohini, from your side, how do you see DEI, or are there other ways to describe DEI? And what is the kind of track that Microsoft follows for something like this?
I think, like Anusuya said, a lot of any organization that looks at this broad topic needs to connect it to the organization's vision and mission. And Microsoft, as a global technology company with a mission of empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more, becomes very intentional to make sure that we are thinking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. That not just gets into our culture that our CEO has been on a journey for more than 10 years on to transform, but also empowers every employee to think about what that DEI means for that person. So for example, each one of us, when we write our annual core priorities, there is one section we have to write about diversity, inclusion, and equity. So each one of us, for every year in our core priorities, is pledging what exactly we plan to do for this priority, right?
And if I could ask, is that written by every woman or is it written by every person?
Every person.
Oh, that's excellent, right?
Every
Because
individual, every full-time employee who's writing their performance report is pledging what they will do in that fiscal year, and then at the end of the year is reporting what they have done in that space. Therefore, then, if you look at the strategy of sort of the 4 pillars of employees, empowerment, hiring, and then customers and partners, because that's how we work with ecosystems. We work with customers and partners because we are a platform company. We make things happening via partners, via customers. So how are we engaging our customers and partners? So beyond the policy part of it, which is of course fairly expansive, not just gender, as Anusuya said, gender, disabilities, even mental disabilities, even learning, different learning spectrum, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, all of those elements come into picture. But I think the ability to not just give policy, but transparently report how you're doing on them. So Microsoft publishes this annual diversity and inclusion report, which is very expansive and talks about openly how are we doing on representation, on pay equity, on hiring. And it shows what we are doing, how well we are doing, how well we are not doing, and what do we need to keep doing forward. So I think that policy, programs, empowerment to every employee, making it every employee's business, and being transparent is how it all comes together.
No, absolutely. I think the main thing, I think, in the context of a policy is not just writing the policy down. It's actually walking the talk, as you said, Anu, right? Where is that policy actually taking us? Is it having the impact that it should? As a corporate lawyer, we know that in a listed company, for instance, there has to be one woman on the board. And as one of the speakers earlier said, it becomes a diversity quota. And you may have arrived there because of your merit, but at the end of the day, if other companies are just finding a wife or a sister or somebody to fill up that role, then it's really doing a disservice to a lot of us who are showing up with merit but are being viewed in the same lens. So I think spend a little bit of time, the both of you, on giving the audience a sense for how not to be perceived as this quota system, right? Because ultimately it's about merit. As we both discussed, that everything boils down to, of course, a positive kind of bias to bring the right people to the table, but the person who gets the role is the one who has the most amount of merit at the end of the day. So Anu, if you want to speak about that, because you mentioned to me that programs where you started all about making it gender specific has now become open to everyone. And that to me is fascinating, because this is not just about a woman thing. It's actually about taking everybody along thing, right? So I'd love to understand how you expanded it from a diversity quota situation to actually all for one and one for all.
Indeed, indeed. I think it fundamentally starts with the messaging at the top, and then how it trickles to all levels in the organization, right? So leadership accountability is a must. It's a starting point, and it definitely leads to a very positive ripple effect across the organization. So you were talking about this aspect of the quota system. I want to address that first. I think first and foremost, it is about making sure that we are inclusive to different groups, like what I mentioned, and make sure that they are part of the slate of candidates, whether it is hiring or promotions or training or leadership opportunities. We need to really make sure that they are part of the slate. And once they are part of the slate, then it's an equal opportunity for everybody. Their merit has to really play the role. I just wanted to bring one example that we have. It's something that's working out very well for us. It's called Grow. It is get ready for opportunities at work at Philips. It was something that was started by our employee resource group called IPWL, which is Philips Women Lead. So it was meant to look at how we can empower and grow our middle layer of technologists to senior positions, senior technical leadership positions. So we started off with a smaller cohort, and it involved rigorous training, case studies, and implementing solutions for real world business problems. And the best part about it is right now, Grow is something that has been expanded to all across India and also includes men. Yeah. And another important aspect is that through the course of evolution of Grow, we also had men seeded into the various interventions at different points of time. So they really started seeing the positive impact that it had, and how it crossed all boundaries of gender and other areas. So that's the ripple effect that it has caused. So very clearly now, a lot of our strategy is to not lose the focus, not dilute the focus of gender diversity, but make sure that it is also leveraging the ecosystem and allyship from men.
Yeah. So let me ask you, like, taking off the point that you just said, allyship, right? And you spoke about how in your appraisal you need to actually write down or pledge what you would do for DEI. Does this intervention change how advocacy is seen And does it lead to this creation of allyship, mentorship? These are the kind of words that, of course, we have heard used. How do you see it bringing about a positive change? Is it positive? Is it not? Is it having the right kind of impact? And how do you track it and monitor it?
I think, building on something Anusuya was talking about, I think the idea of policy or idea of monitoring, those are important, but I think they are confusing the why with the what.
Okay.
My sense is that we need to talk about the why of diversity, inclusion, equity a lot more. And when organizations, society understand that there is a real talent aspect, there is a real um, equity aspect, there's an economic development aspect, then the why then drives a lot of the positive behaviors rather than targets and monitoring them.
Okay.
And what I'm seeing in Microsoft is, I think the why in terms of whether each one of us writes in our, in fact, to me, writing on my annual thing is like a afterthought. It's something, okay, I write, but it's not the reason I do things.
Yeah.
It's an afterthought. And I'll tell you why, because if the why is clear, then your behavior is going to be attuned to the why diversity matters, why in this age of AI, why in the world of tech, you need diversity to ensure that AI is fair and bias free and responsible. That why then drives the right behavior. So today, if I can say that without that why in place, I cannot imagine how Microsoft India South Asia leadership team is actually gender balanced. We have more than, actually right now, more than half women. The CFO is a woman. I'm the CTO. There is, chief partner officer. I mean, we have got the, and I think it's not a chance. It is intentional, and it has been through understanding the value that diversity brings, not just gender, experiences, different perspectives you bring, why that results in performance, why that results in employee retention, why that results in top talent. All of those why is the reason why you see the behaviors. And to me, I think if we can change that narrative from monitoring to targets, I think we will do a lot more justice to the cause we are behind in terms of driving the right behaviors.
So I agree with you, but I also disagree with you in a certain sense, because until you actually track, right, and put it out there for the world to see, you're actually, sometimes you could get away without, making the right impact.
No,
right?
absolutely. Which is why the transparency report
Exactly.
every year is coming out with harsh and transparent and sometimes not very inspiring numbers.
Yeah.
To say that, look, we are doing okay here, but here we have a lot of work to do.
Exactly. And that's when interventions are important. So, what I think is good from our position is that because we've sort of been through this journey, we've been through the more difficult stages of our lives when maybe people didn't take us as seriously as we were young women, but now we have a lot of gray hair, which I also choose to not dye, so it helps me a little bit. But the point is that for younger women, right? Because as we know today, it is, and the theme of this conference is me plus we, right? So it's not just about the collective, it is also about the individual and what can each of us do. So I really like that idea that you pledge to the organization what you will do differently, and we can say, okay, this is what we know and we should do it, but many people don't know, and that's where I believe education, advocacy, talking, stories, groups that make such a big difference.
Absolutely. And I think one of the bigger areas is people think they know
Correct.
and actually have unconscious biases. We all do. So I think the ability to assume positive intent, assume the right intent, but respectfully and thoughtfully get people to understand not just the why, but where you might be having blind spots.
Exactly. And, there's been a lot of talk in the US about this whole affirmative action. And if anybody sort of followed, the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action for universities, right? So there was the very sort of clear statement from the bench that one needn't take affirmative action, and it should just be based on the regular rules and the policies of the universities, which to me is a bit of a shame, because I do think that after, so many years of having an upper hand, some rebalancing was needed, and affirmative action was indeed an important part of that. How do you view it? Do you view affirmative action as necessary? Do you view that policy must be one that plays the role, or should it be, again, through what you were saying, Rohini, education? So we'd love to hear both your thoughts. Maybe Anu, you want to go first around that.
I think there are two parts, right? I think it's the balance. I firmly believe that the first aspect, and Rohini spoke about it well, it's about acceptance. That's the first step. And the second is also trying to work towards breaking that resistance to change. And I do believe that measurable goals are important in that direction, because inclusion, diversity, it's a journey. It's not something that can happen overnight. I just wanted to bring in one example. We talk about women in IT, technology, but what about women in manufacturing, right? So that's where there was a very positive action that happened at our technology campus, our manufacturing campus at Pune. And it's amazing to see that there are now 62% of women in the manufacturing floors at our factory in Pune. And that's come through very, very focused action. And in fact, there is one shift where it's only the female employees who take care of the entire shift, right? And in addition to that, there are also the diploma apprentice trainings where we onboard members or students from local communities. So I think all of this has happened only through acceptance, realizing that there is a gap, and then taking conscious action, like what she was saying. That's one example that I would like to share.
I would add to say, and to my earlier point, that look, I am absolutely strong believer in you. If you want to get something done, measure it. Only what gets measured gets done. So I think that is, and in fact, even if you forget about the corporate world, the aspects of whether it's healthcare, road safety, everything, the level of gender data gap that exists in how policies are made, how even towns are built, how safety measures are taken, it's abhorrent. It's quite depressing if you ask me. So I think you have to absolutely measure it. But I think it also becomes important to ensure that you bring the high level policies that's actionable to individuals. Because I think that people, when you see an effect, you see a particular approach to, let's say, how you put parking spaces, for example, right? You see an approach to something like that that is made intentional to what it would mean to you, to your family members, then it has that much more impact. And I think that is where some of the employee resource groups, some of the advocacy that, as you were mentioning, play a role in helping all of us look in the mirror and understand that we are all, in the right human intent, want to make the world a more equitable place. And are we putting our muscle, our mind to making that happen? I think in that respect, both organizations can do more, are doing, but need to do more. Because to your point, it is not a journey that is anywhere close to ending. If in fact, if you look at India's female participation rate, we are among the lowest in the world. And for a country that wants to become one of the top economies in the world, to me, that's a very, very serious discrepancy that we need to address.
Absolutely. If you look at, why Japan slid from being the number 2 economy in the world to where it is today, it is because female participation in the workforce was so much lower than what it should have been. And now it's, of course, growing. But, and you make a very important point that you need multiple levels of change, right? So who do you believe are all the important stakeholders in this journey? Because it is an ecosystem change, right? So I'm sure one of your answers will be right from the top, right? But who else is it? Who should it be? Rohini, you want to answer that? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the example I gave about each one of us writing in our performance, in our annual priorities, it's everyone, and it has to obviously start at the top. But I think it becomes, from a culture transformation perspective, it needs to be at every level. And I'll give you examples. I think in my tenure at Microsoft, the type of conversations, whether the previous session was talking about vulnerability, the questions we ask each other in the leadership team. Let's say we are putting together a panel. One of us asking, we are not seeing diversity showing in that. Our ability to question each other and have those authentic conversations, not just women, but also men, have their vulnerability, have ability to say, I'm speaking here because I think it's a safe space. For a man to say that, I think it's because that space has become diverse and inclusive. Because very often men don't become vulnerable. And I think that ability for all of us to be equally open to hearing ideas that may not be welcome, that may not be pleasant to hear feedback from our teams that somewhere we could have shown up better. All of those become a lot more human, a lot more real, a lot more authentic, because that diversity of voice is in the room.
Anu,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I just wanted to add, when it comes to the stakeholders, I really believe that it's all of us as employees in the workplace and even beyond have a role to play. So, for example, we were thinking about, as part of the India Philips Women's Lead, which is one of our employee resource groups, what can be done better for women, especially when it comes to pregnancy and postnatal care. So pregnancy cannot be a penalty for a woman, right? So in fact, the IPWL played a very important role in framing one of the policies called a pregnancy care program, where it is a comprehensive 18-month program starting from the pregnancy period of 9 months and also beyond to further 9 months. So essentially, it's an end-to-end view of that encompasses the entire journey of a woman. So it came from the employee resource group. Another important aspect.
This is an example, right, where I think the men want to do the right thing. They probably don't
They don't know how to do it.
They
So
don't
it's beautiful.
understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, there was also another important one. We have the Next Gen Advisory Group, very interesting group, where they are very, very solution focused, early professionals who actually work with the executive committee. They bring in different perspectives that the exco might not be aware of. And in fact, in one of our patient safety and quality journey, they were the ones who really brought in significant change. So I think it has to start from the employee as well. There can be a push from the organization, but it's all of us who need to shape that.
Yeah, so it's like, when we say it's about employees speaking up, but they must also speak up knowing that their ideas will be heard. They will not be shut down, right? So yeah, so it's not just the role of HR to make policies around this. It's really all about us. You were saying something, Rohini. Yeah.
No, I think exactly. In fact, very often, this point about do we have the right representation, it's actually never the HR person speaking, which then gives you a sense that perhaps we are in the right direction. in terms of moving to the culture. But having said that, it is, I mean, I don't want to be naive about it. We still have a long way to go. And I think it, even at my senior level, I can say that I do have to make sure that I am absolutely the very best at what I do. And sometimes that is perhaps additional pressure,
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
which,
we are putting ourselves on a pedestal for actually,
yeah,
for the future. Yeah, for
yeah,
the future generations.
yeah. And perhaps, I mean, in fact, the others tell me that, the level at which you have, the journey you've taken, why? But I do need to be the very best every single day. And that is additional pressure. And sometimes when I do feel tired, I say, I'm going to keep going for others. I'm going to keep going for others because they need to see that they need to keep at it. They need to keep at the journey.
I think you've made a fantastic point. And, when I was driving over, I was, talking to one of the young lawyers in my team. And she was telling me, oh, my parents are saying maybe I should come back and I should quit because my health is kind of, not so great. And I was like, ask yourself, if you were a man, would your parents just ask you to drop everything and just come back home? And if the answer is no, then ask yourself, why can't you work through this problem, right? We will give you the resources, tools you need, but why not, not take the safe option? So I think we all, as women, young, old, middle-aged, whatever, need to take a bit of a pledge that, hey, we are going to further our own cause and the cause of our fellow women and fellow minority groups around us, because ultimately that is the only way to change. We have to put ourselves in uncomfortable positions.
You don't realize how many people are watching you. Do realize there are a lot of people watching you. Do it for others, not just for others, do it for whatever whatever makes you tick, right? The country, the society, your organization, your family, but keep doing and keep going, because there will be ups and downs. Everybody goes through ups and downs. And to one of the points which were made earlier, about being angry, I would say, don't be angry, get even. Don't get angry, get even. What that means is, become so good, become so professional at what you do that you are sought after, that you are the person who has the voice. Bring your voice, take your anger to the action.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the confidence we must bring to the table is an absolute must, right? Because without confidence, you may not be able to speak up.
Yeah.
But ultimately, again, it goes back to the point we were discussing earlier, that organizations need to create that space for you to be confident, to be your best self. So yeah, you were mentioning to me about, how the generational issue can play a bit of a role. And I'm an old person now, so anybody that is Gen Z, they confuse me, right? So I'm always asking them, like, what do you guys want? Like, how do you want to work? Because you don't work the same way that I work. So Anu, you had an interesting point around this debate, or rather competing interests between different groups and how they think. So
So the way I view it is, I think every generation goes through their own trials and tribulations, right? But one thing that's personally helped me in my journey, towards embracing, different generations is, I would call it reverse mentoring, right? I've been fortunate to be a mentor to many, across the board. And what I personally love in that mentoring journey is when I mentor early professionals. The vibrancy, the different thought process that they bring in is something that I take back. So making it a conscious practice is something that keeps me very connected to the pulse. There might be some areas that I may miss out, but I'm conscious of it. But the good thing is that it's with these reverse mentors that I actually get to understand what is the pulse. And in a way, it also helps me to shape my team's work and how we approach changes that are going across the organization and
Yeah.
how we adapt to that.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know purpose meant anything but get a good job, right? But today purpose means very diverse things to very diverse people and diverse groups. And I'm conscious of the time, so let me actually then throw it out to the audience. If we have questions, I'm happy to bunch them together. If there are a lot, okay, I see a lot of hands. So can someone help us with the questions? Ah, there, please.
Topics on DEI. I came up from a startup company and we just started DEI strategies in our company. So from yours, can you hear me?
You can
No.
be closer.
Okay. So from your talks, like what I understood is gender diversity we are taking care, and then performance reviews. You said like men also should aware about the performance reviews, how to avoid the biases and everything. So what else we can introduce new policies in the company, just like a startups, to make sure that we are having a DI principles apart from gender university and then the promotion, I mean, performance reviews awareness, any other policies we can introduce?
I would sort of answer that at a very meta level and say if you're a startup in today's world, this should be the basis for your existence,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Your purpose should be driven by being an inclusive place of of work. So, everything you do, people say that strategy eats culture for breakfast. I completely don't agree with that. Culture and strategy go hand in hand today. So you must shape your organization's culture and at every instance think about DEI as a very important role. I don't know if you guys, if you have anything else to add to that.
I think, yeah, I mean, yes, of course. You know, try to think as a startup, you are very action biased. You need to be action biased. So I think it will be important to shape your policies and build them into action and then evolve, if you will, right? I think it'll become important to make them real.
Yeah, understood.
I just want to add one aspect that it is a foundation and it is non-negotiable. So it's important to, get the ground running with that, with diversity, inclusion as a foundation.
Yeah. So we are taking care of the basic things like gender diversity, making sure that we are having equal opportunities for women and encouraging women in all leadership roles. But as you said, like Rohini ma'am and Ansuya ma'am, like supporting pregnant women for 18 months program. So would like to hear more like any such type of new programs you have at Microsoft or Philips so that we can also leverage those type of policies.
I think shall we take that off
Yeah,
offline because there
definitely.
are a whole
Maybe
bunch of people who are
I can
taking
talk
questions. Yeah.
offline as
Yeah,
well.
thanks.
Yeah,
We can
I think let's do that.
definitely
Thank you for your question. Yeah. Hello. Hi, hi.
share.
Hello.
Hi, it was a very enlightening talk. I work in a company who invests not only in women, but also differently abled and the gender queer. I work in Microsoft.
Oh, super.
Thank you.
So
Good to meet you.
yeah, yeah, same here. So I just realized there was one time, actually, I have a 10-year-old. So, and she loves to accompany me to my office just for just simple whiteboarding. I remember when I was pregnant, that time we had a 3-month maternity period, nothing more. So I had my parent at home to take care when she was 4 months or 6 months or till 1 year or 2 years. We have a ERG group where we spoke about having a daycare inside the campus. But we got to know that none of the Microsoft campus worldwide has that support. So India, I mean, IDC could not take it forward. Is there any way, like, see, my daughter is 10-year-old, right? So in 10 years, we did not see that yet. So, I mean, for young mothers, if we could have that inclusive policy for a daycare inside campus.
First of all, thank you very much. Thank you for bringing that point. Let's take it to the employee resource group, and let's take it to HR. We have to make it part of the mission. But
Yeah,
happy to work with you.
it would be really very opportunist for young mothers to stay in the project and not be like a backup person because they have to
Absolutely,
control their hours.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Dr. Rohini, Anusia, Kasturi. Amazing session and great tips and points that you've highlighted today in the session. My name is Prachi, and I work with S&P Global as an IT project manager in real estate space, where women only account for 12% today as a total workforce, at least in India. Having said that, we are talking a lot about gender bias and what needs to be done about it. And definitely, we all need to talk about it more and bring it to the surface. And I absolutely agree with all the points that you have highlighted. However, as companies now are adopting to hybrid work environment, where some people work remotely and some people work from office, there's a growing concern of the bias emerging between these two groups that we see now. And it's manifesting in various ways. Like, we see it in perceived productivity, inclusion, and visibility in the office, work life balance. So, what are the best practices, and policies you would advise to be implemented so that this could be taken care of and no one feels excluded?
That's a great question, guys. You wanna, yeah, take that. Anu, you have some thoughts around that?
Yeah, I think this is something that is emerging in as much as we have returned to work, which was challenging for a few. On the same token, flexibility in work also means that maybe there are instances where people might feel a bit isolated. Yeah. I think what has consciously happened in our organization is that we really emphasize the fact that every person counts as part of a discussion, irrespective of where that person is, whether in Tumkur or in Bangalore or in the Netherlands, right? I think that is something that has got really ingrained into our psyche post COVID. I think that was a good thing that happened. Having said that, there are some times where we could see those kind of issues crop up. And one thing that has consciously happened in our organization is about speak up culture. And there are conscious efforts to make sure that there are these speak up circles where such issues could be brought about. Yeah. But of course, for all of that, we also need to have an environment where we are psychologically safe to bring up that. So I think it's a combination of both speaking up and creating the safe environment.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the pandemic made us all see the balance required between being in person versus being virtual, and I think it also created a lot of technological opportunities to make it happen. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Today, if you have a conference call in a Microsoft world, everybody whose whether is in the room or remotely has to switch on their camera, which means that actually on the pane you are seeing everybody. It doesn't matter if you are not in the room versus you are in the room. That's one example. So because then it levels the playing field. Second example, if your people have to bringing in their comments, everybody has to raise their hand, whether the person is in the room or the person is joining virtually, and you follow only the order of the people who joined the
Yeah.
queue. That is a level playing field. That's technology is allowing. One, and two, practices have evolved to make sure that you are looking at the hybrid world in a way that creates a level playing field. So anybody outside joining remotely, virtually, is equally part of the meeting as anybody in the room. If somebody is in the room, that person has to join the line that is a virtual line that everybody else is joining. So it's a matter of intention. It's a matter of leadership and and intention to include, have to create that inclusive space, and technology is allowing, is enabling that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Could we have the next two questions one after the other and we can try and then close them because time's up?
Firstly, thank you very much for this amazing panel on inclusive workspaces. I'm Nikita and I work as a product owner with Deloitte. As an early career professional, I have seen a lot of my colleagues go on maternity breaks or when they have to go for elderly caregiving and then they come back after a while. While I'm appreciative of the fact that many corporates have different programs called second innings, return to work and all, but ultimately I see that these are the colleagues that we work with on a daily, on a regular basis on the ground. So I want to take some insights that I can take back to my workspaces where we as peers and colleagues can help somebody who has come back after a brief stint of a break.
Okay. Can we have the next question as well so that we can then answer them as well?
Hi, my name is Drishya. I have been working in tech industry for 3+ years. So my question, while I was in college, even when a girl gets placed in any of the well-known MNCs, there will be comments passed like, "Oh, she got it because they are filling up the quota." So this girl privilege kind of thing is there in MNC. So the guys in the college will be talking about this. So my question is, this is an early start for a girl. This can create some sense of insecurity or self-doubt in them. How can we overcome this challenge and these comments coming from in their early start of their career? Yeah, that's
So I think to that I would say first develop a thick skin because this world is not a kind place. It's not kind to young people, middle-aged people or old people, right? So be thick-skinned, and if you know you have gotten that position with the right for the right reasons, then you know that there's no need to be insecure about it just because somebody wants to pass a comment. But I think again, this is going back to the point you're making, have allies, right?
Indeed. One is allies. And I think that nothing substitutes for competence. Be the best at what you do and simultaneously develop a thick skin, is what I would say. And to the person who, the first question, I think it is about sensitization across the team, right? As a leader, as a team member, as a team lead, I think it's very important that we also sensitize our colleagues about the need for that person, whoever has gone through a life event, to be thought about
Yeah.
and be caring. In the end, it's all about having that care.
Again, it goes back to being an ally, right?
Being an ally.
You can
Yeah.
speak up if the management is not, necessarily thinking about it. Why not you bring that point up? Why does it have to come from the person who's had that life experience? You are all colleagues at the end of the day, and safety in numbers, right? If many of you go and speak, you have a good chance of being heard. Rohini, do you agree or yeah?
Yeah, I think so. One, of course, be your best, but you will have bad days.
Yeah.
You will have days when you will be filled with doubt. You will have days when you will feel like you are not adequate. Have a group of people. Have a safety net. Have a group of women with who you can vent. Because one thing a lot of, I would say, I'm making generalizing a little bit. It's important to vent. You're not looking for answers. You're not looking for solutions. You're just venting. You're just sharing, and that's okay. And so have that network of women friends with who you can just vent a little bit, right? And who will tell you it's okay. And the second one, I think, which is important, which is the point we were discussing earlier about unconscious biases. Any one of us who's raised a kid know what it takes to be around a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, and what kind of a multitasking you do. Now, people are looking for leaders, managers who can do multitask. Voila, right? So I think that ability to understand that somebody who may be coming from a break, that person is probably building skills or has brought some experience that you may not have thought about in the standard JD. And that understanding is what is an organization that's evolved in their culture is understanding, is realizing those are skills you're not put on the JD, but are potentially very valuable.
We have a last question. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Swati and I work as a data scientist at Microsoft. So my question is also around what you were talking a little bit earlier. So I am also a young mom and I just joined back last year after 7 months break. So what are your suggestions for such people who took a career break, and how to put your career back on track and start feeling that you are making some progress in right direction?
Can, so first of all, it's great to see so many Microsoft folks, which is wonderful. But I'll give this a non-Microsoft answer. I'll give a very non-Microsoft answer. I'll give a personal answer. What do you mean by on track? I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. Is because I think it's important to understand. I'm not saying don't get back on career. Of course, get back and of course build your career, right? But be cognizant that it's a marathon and not a sprint. That you are building for the long term your career. So even if you are taking some time to be with your child, and please do, so that you are coming back with additional vigor and not feeling that you did not give the time to your child. So it's a very fine balance. We all have been there. It's not an easy answer, but I would think of it as a marathon. And when you think about even your short-term goals, right, think of them with a balance. And when you think about, that's why I asked you the question, what do you mean on track? What does that mean? Ask yourself that very fundamental question looking in the mirror. Don't compare yourselves with your college graduates, people who graduated with you, this batch, that batch. It doesn't work. That's not the way life works.
I just wanted to add one aspect, and it's a fantastic thing what you talked about, comparing or the fact that we shouldn't compare. One thing that I really want to make sure is that there is tremendous power in sisterhood. Yeah. So, and I think it's very important that we stand for each other, right? Across organizations, across different groups, there's tremendous power in that. There is also one more aspect that I think as women, we typically tend to shy away from when it comes to seeking support. So let's not shy away from seeking support and building those support systems, whether it is at work or whether it is at home or whether it is our allies across the board. I think the ability to seek support openly is something that I think really helps.
Yeah, no, I think the last thing that I will add is that, this feeling of guilt of, oh, I'm at work, my child is at home, it never goes away. So it doesn't matter. And everybody lives with it. It's fine. Like I think a speaker earlier said, there is no work-life balance. Please don't seek it. You can integrate work and life. Go for that option. It's much better. With that, shall we bring this to a close? If
Wonderful.
this is okay.
There is a balance in the world. Yeah, I mean, just picking on that point, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for all the questions. Thank you.
I remember when I became a mother, my mother said to me that this is one job that will remain with you for life. You can be a wife impermanently, you can be a girlfriend for a little while, but a mother is a lifetime. So you need to learn to use those skills that you have somewhere at the back to be able to get that balance that we've been talking about. Thank you so much to Rohini, Anasuya, and to Kasturi. Ladies and gentlemen, we have little tokens for them to take back. So please put your hands together and give them a round of applause.
Because we see the future, gonna get that, 10 toes in, gonna feel that, feel that, feel that. Any time of the day, better make way when we pull up. On a new wave when to come up. We got the high-end product, the conduct, business, professional, body, phenomenal, built in a way unstoppable. Our MO, incomparable, the style, the
All right, ladies and